wanted to be different.
Hey guys, it's Sierra Beauty here, and I am back with a different video today. I guess you can call it a story time. I wanted to wait until the month of October to share this with you all, but it's been pressing on my heart, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I pray that I can get through it without tearing up because I don't want to mess my makeup because I am at work while I shoot this video. This is the most quiet time of the day for me, so I figured maybe I could get it out really quick for you guys. This is a story time of how I survive domestic violence. And when you think of domestic violence, we normally think of physical domestic violence, but there's also mental, there's emotional, there's financial, there is sexual. So domestic violence incorporates a lot of arenas. And I know this because I did so many studies in college on domestic violence. Not that I was fascinated with the subject, it's because I grew up with it. And here's my story of domestic violence. My mother was the mother of 8 children by 2 separate men. My sister and I, the one that's right underneath me, we share the same father. And then my last 6 siblings share the same father, whom my mother was married to. He was a very controlling and abusive man. And stick around because I want you to stick around to the end of this video because I'm going to share something that's, to me, that's totally amazing, and I think you'll find it maybe not amazing, but shocking as well. But anyway, my mother was with this man, and she suffered so much abuse at the hand of this guy. She suffered a lot of abuse at the hands of my stepfather. My mother worked full-time job. She did not learn how to drive until she was 25, and I believe that was so he could keep her home and always knew where she was. But at the age of 25, she learned how to drive. He bought her a car. My mother worked at Vlasic pickle plant. So now I'm sure you guys have all heard of Vlasic. So my mother worked full-time there for a lot of years. He was very, very controlling. My mom had to always walk on eggshells, which meant that we had to always walk on eggshells. The least little thing would literally set him off. Like my mom couldn't go anywhere. She could go to work, but she couldn't go anywhere. He always wanted her to be home. When she did go places, now we're talking about somebody that's 25 plus years old, well into her 30s, well into her 40s. This was still going on. This went on over the course of at least 20 years, okay? Well, I'm going to say about 15 years, okay? So we're talking about a grown woman who really couldn't go anywhere, couldn't have any friends. She would have to sneak and go places. Like if she wanted to go play cards with her friends or she wanted to go to her cousin's house and hang out, she would literally have to sneak, or she would have to go. Let me backtrack. My stepdad he lived part-time in another town that was about an hour away from us because that's where he worked. Okay? And I'm going to tell you about his job a little bit later on. But that's where he worked. So on the days that he was off, he would come to where we lived. And that would be hell every day that he was there, honestly. He drank a lot. His drink of choice was gin, no chaser, just straight gin. Always kept a bottle of gin in his back pocket. He would have us children outside in the cold doing things. Um, it didn't matter how cold it was. It didn't matter how hot it was. What mattered was we had to do what he said do, because if we didn't, then we would get in trouble as well, or he would get mad at my mom and take it out on her, and we didn't want that. So on the days that he was not there, on the days that he was in his hometown, my mom would go places. She would go play cards with her friends or go to bingo, things like that. If he called the house, back in this time, we didn't have cell phones. We had the rotary phones. If any of you over 50, you know what I'm talking about. The rotary phones. He would call the house, and if my mom was not there, we as children would have to lie and say, oh, she ran to the store, or, she was somewhere, excuse me, safe. You know, we didn't want him to think that she was somewhere playing cards or hanging out or anything like that, because we didn't want her to get in trouble. Now, here we are, young children. I'm the oldest. And here we are, teenagers, preteen, elementary school kids, lying for our mother, taking up for our mother so she wouldn't get in trouble, as it were. So we would do that so she would be able to go out and have fun. So there were times where he would pull up and we didn't know that he was pulling up. And so our front door had a peephole on it. So every time we would hear a car, we would look out the peephole and see if it was him. If it was him and my mom was not home, we would call my mother real quick. Now, mind you, we were not really allowed to use the phone. We couldn't call anybody. Nobody could call us. He was very controlling. We couldn't even watch TV. And I'll get to that. But we would have to call my mom real quick and say, hey, he's here. And my mom would rush home. And because my mom was not there when he got there, that turned into an argument. Now we lived in a shotgun house. And if any of you from down south, you know what that means. So there weren't a lot of rooms. The walls were not very isolated, so we heard everything. So once my mom would get home, we knew to go in the back of the house. And all you would hear is furniture moving. You would hear licks sounding off. You would hear my mother scream. You would hear my mother cry. And it just went on until, he got tired. My mom never fought back, not from what I could see. And as children, to sit there and to just hear your mom being beaten on, and there's nothing that you can do because, you're a child. What are you supposed to do? And it was horrific. It was hard. And so we just had to literally sit there until he felt like he was done. So this went on for many, many years. My mother was probably 36 years old, 37, something like that, when she finally got the strength to leave. I remember I had joined the military, and because I had to get away. I had to get away. I graduated high school at 17, and I was not ready to go to college at that time, and I did not want to stay home. So my only option was the military, because I had to get out that house, because not only was he abusive to my mother, he was abusive to us, especially me and my sister that share a different father. Okay, so it's like he showed preferential treatment toward his kids than he did to us. My father was not allowed to see us. My father was not allowed to visit with us. My father moved away to California when I was 4. Me and my sister, our father moved away to California when we were 4. Sorry about the lighting. And so when my father would come home to visit, because my father's family still lived in the same hometown, we were not allowed to see my dad. Even my graduation, high school graduation, my dad was not allowed to come to my graduation. And my mother did so many things that I know she didn't want to do, but she wanted to keep the peace. Because who wants to get wailed on all the time? And we understood. I understood. So I graduated high school. I left and I went off to the Army. I got pregnant when I was 19. That same year I got pregnant, my mother got pregnant with my brother. Now, mind you, my mother has 8 children. She had 7 girls, and then she finally had a boy. So my mom and I were pregnant at the same time. So I happened to be home on leave when my son was probably about 9 months old, which made my brother about 10 months old because my brother was born in July of 89 and my son was born in October of 89. So they were only a few months apart. So I happened to be home on leave, uh, and um, I was at my mother in law's house because I had married at that time. I was married to my children's father. So I happened to be at my mother in law's house, and no, let me back up. I was home on leave, and then I got a call. Yeah, I got a call from my mom. And um, let me back up, guys, because I'm all over the place. So when I left home at 17 to go to the military, which left my sister right up under me that shares the same father as I do. She was about 16 when I left home. I was almost 18. I turned 18 in basic training. So I had left home and my sister was still there. Now, mind you, I said that he treated us differently than he treated his children. So while I was gone, again, my mother was still there with him, and they had gotten into it. And so my sister decided she was leaving. And so my sister left and she ended up moving to California where my biological father lives. And she still lives there to this day, in LA. So while I was home on leave, I got another call from my mom. And my mom said to come and get me. Because mind you, she had a car, but he would break the car. He would do things to the car to keep her from leaving, to keep her from from going anywhere. Now my mother was raised by her godmother, which we call our grandma. And while my grandmother was alive, he was the perfect gentleman, perfect man. But as soon as my grandmother passed, it's like he knew my mom had nobody else. She had god sisters and she had cousins, but she really had nobody, no immediate family, and he knew that. So he isolated her from the family and friends that she did have, you know, because he controlled everything surrounding her and us. We couldn't have friends. We couldn't use the phone. We couldn't talk. We couldn't watch TV. If we watched TV, and he showed up, he would go feel the back of the TV to see if the TV was warm and if it had been watched. On the rare occasions we did get to watch TV, we could only watch PBS. Which, if you're my age, a little bit older or below, you know what PBS is. Just the educational channel. That's all we were allowed to watch. So I was home on leave. My mom called me and said, "Hey, come pick me up." When I got there, her face was all bloody. Her eyes were all black. She had my little brother, who was a baby, in her arms, and she was sitting outside in the driveway. And all the rest of my sisters, that were all younger than me, were standing out there with her. Um, she said to come pick me up. So, like I said, when I got there, this is what I saw when I got there. She had the baby in her hands, and she's he was still there. Now, mind you, when I went, I took my then husband with me because I knew, excuse me, I knew what type of person that he was. And so I wasn't going to go by myself. So I left my baby with my mother-in-law, my then mother-in-law, and me and my ex-husband went to go pick my mom up. And when I got there, like I said, she was sitting outside in the driveway, beaten, with my sisters and stuff standing around her. So my mom said, "I'm leaving." And then he told her that if you leave, then I'm going to pick you guys off one by one. This is what he said to her. "If you leave, I'm going to pick you off one by one." My mother, who finally found her voice after all of these years, said, "Well, you better start picking." So, yeah, so he told my mom, "If you leave, I'm going to pick you all off one by one." Now, mind you, these were his children as well. And my mother said, "Well, you better start picking." So I picked my mother up. We took her to my auntie's house. Ironically enough, my dad's sister. We took her to my auntie's house, and she stayed with that aunt on my father's side. My Aunt Karen, I love her to death, God rest her soul. She stayed with her until she was able to get on her feet. My mother got her a house. She continued to work. And to her credit, unlike so many others, she never went back. And believe me, he tried. But my mother knew that he had not changed. And if she were to go back, how it would be. My mother had tasted freedom, okay? And I know she did not want to go back into bondage. Now, let me tell you, when I say I survived, my survival, I saw so much at the hands of my stepfather. I experienced so much at the hands of my stepfather till it made me say, you know what? I'm not going to deal with that. I'm not going to put up with that from anybody. You know, I'm not going to let a man put his hands on me. I'm not. And I never did. I'm not this strong woman. I'm very demure. I'm very docile. I'm very humble. But God did bless me with the discernment of spirit. And so I have been fortunate enough not to have experienced any type of physical abuse. Now, there are other types of abuse out there, mental, emotional, and I will talk about that at a later time. But I'm going to throw this a caveat in there. I did experience some sexual abuse at the hands of my stepfather, my sister and I. But I'm not going to talk about that, maybe in a subsequent video. But I did not let that define me. I came out of that as well. I am almost 55. Let me tell you guys how horrific my childhood was. I am almost 55 years old, and I still have nightmares about this man, my stepfather. My mother passed away at 51 years old. He had put so much stress on my mom. Like, she had gone through so much. Dealing with this man, that at 51, she stroked out. Like, and I'm not saying that that was the only cause, but it didn't. Sorry, because I'm not supposed to cry. I have another video I want to do later today, and I don't want to mess my makeup up. But my mother left this world at 51. She was still young. She was still a young woman. She had so much life to live. And guess what? Guess who's still living? That old devil. He's in his early 70s now. My mother passed away in 2003. I have not seen him since my mother's funeral. And I don't say that I hate people, because God, that's not godly. It's not Christ-like. But I hate the person that he is. And if I never see him again, I'm okay with that. Even a lot of my siblings that are his biological children don't mess with him. Come to find out, now this man has 6 kids by my mother. Come to find out, he's claiming about 20 and some more kids, which means that he had lots of other kids outside of the marriage with my mom, outside the marriage with my mom. So he's got outside kids. He says he's got about 30. I believe him. I have not seen this man since 2003, my mother's funeral. And if I never see him again, I'm okay with that. The day I get the call that he's left this world, I may go to the funeral. And when I go, it's going to be just look over in the casket and say, so he's dead, huh? And then I'm going to go to his house, and I'm going to take all the stuff that he took from my mother. My grandmother left my stuff, left my mom so many antiques, so many different things that he took from her that he would not allow her to have back. And I want those things back, and I'm going to get them back. And before I end this video, I want to say that although Before I end this video, I want to say, if you are watching, oh, sorry. I said I was going to share something shocking with you about my stepfather. Do you want to know what my stepfather did for a living? While he was being this horrible, horrible person, while he was coming home nearly every day, beating his wife, molesting his stepchildren, uh, doing all these horrible things, trying to flirt with my friends, teenage friends. Do you know what he did for a living? He was the chief of police. Yep, you heard me right. He was the chief of police. So who was my mom going to tell? Who was she going to call? Was she going to call the police? She never called the police. And you can understand why. Why would she? He's a chief. He's a chief of police. So she endured until she had had enough. And then she left. So as I close, because I don't want to, I better stop before I mess up my makeup. As I close, if any of you, be it male or female, are experiencing any type of domestic abuse at the hands of your husband or even at the hands of your spouse, because even in gay and lesbian relationships, abuse does occur. It does. So if you are experiencing any type of abuse, please, I implore you, if not for your sake, then for your children's sake, if not for your sake, then for the sake of your children, please leave. Please get out. Abuse causes so much, not just to you as the battered spouse, but it causes your children nightmares. It causes them anxiety. It messes them up in a relationship. And you, mothers, you don't want your sons growing up to think it's okay to treat his woman like this. You don't want your daughters growing up to think it's okay to allow a man or a woman to treat her like this. You don't want them seeing that, because that's what you're doing by staying. And I know it's easier said than done for some people. I know that a lot of time abusers cut us off from our family members. They cut us off financially, especially if you're not working. If you are working, you may have to give them your check. So I know you have to plan your escape. In some instances, you have to plan your escape. But do that. And even if you can't plan it ahead of time, they have battered women's shelters. Okay? It may not be what you want, but it may be what you need at that time to save your life and the life of your children. Please, get away. I am so glad my mother never went back. I am so happy that when she left, she stayed gone. She did not go back one time. And I think they never officially got divorced. So legally they were still married when my mother passed away. But she left when my brother was less than a year old, and she passed away when my brother was 14. So when she left, she stayed gone for 14 years until the Lord called her home. Was it a struggle for her to raise those children on her own? Yes. But guess what? By this time, I was in the military, and I would send my mom money home to help her. My sister that lived in LA, she would send my mother money home to help her. She would buy my mother's prescriptions. She would send my mother whatever she needed. My mother had tasted freedom, and she did not want to go back. So if you are watching this video and you are in an abusive relationship, marriage, whatever, please, I beg of you to get out, to get help. If not for your sake, then for the sake of your children. Believe me, it affects them more than you realize it. Mothers, you don't want your daughters to think it's okay for a man or a woman to put their hands on them. You don't want your sons to think it's okay to put their hands on their spouse, on their girlfriends, whomever. Domestic violence occurs in heterosexual and gay relationships. It is not okay. Let's teach our sons and our daughters that it is not okay by removing ourselves from these situations. It affects your children more than you think, more than you believe. Believe me when I tell you this. I still have scars from that, and I am 55 years old. If you don't do it for yourself, do it for your children. There is help out there. A lot of times our abusers cut us off from financial and our family and friends where we feel like we have no help, but there are shelters out there for battered women. And although that may not be where you want to be, that may be where you need to be. If it means saving yourself and saving your children, then please go until you can get on your feet. There is help for you. There is, I promise you. And once you leave, don't go back, because it doesn't get any better. I'm so proud that my mother left, and I'm so proud that she never went back. I'm so thankful for that she found her strength. And like she found hers with 8 kids, you can find yours too. Please, whatever you do, leave and don't look back. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and share. Please share. This may be of use to someone else, okay? And just remember, mothers, fathers, because men are abused too, think of your children. If not for you, then for them. They don't need to see this. I heard every lick. I heard every cry. And it's such a helpless feeling. It is such a helpless feeling. So please don't do this to your children, and don't do it to yourself, okay? Get out. Get help. If you are a victim of domestic violence, my email is in my, it's attached to my bio on here. If you need to reach out, if you just need someone to listen to, I am available. Please shoot me an email, okay? Anyway, until next time, have a blessed day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.